40% of kids saying they hate school. We have to find a way in education to bring those kids to school. We got to figure out a way to make them enjoy it, at least just for a little bit.
What we're trying to do is teach kids how to learn.
Some kids have never had success in school. You put them in front of a video game, they find success. Now I have a voice. Now people are listening to me.
I think people think we're teaching video games.
Right.
And that is absolutely not what we're doing.
You can bring this into a building with your teachers, and it's innovative to where the students are going to be a part of something that is just bigger than them.
Through gaming concepts, I really feel like I have even a stronger connection with students than I've had in the past 10 years of teaching.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gaming Concepts podcast. That's kind of a mouthful to say. I'm one of the hosts, Dr. Kristen Kraft, joined with my fellow colleagues, Mike and Trevor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's Friday.
Yes.
It's Friday. Woo.
It's Friday. Well, how are you two doing today? I'm excited to once again visit with you. I have the surprise guest today. But before we get them on, tell me about your week in the esports world.
Can I start?
100%.
I don't know,
Okay.
Mike, can he start? Do we want him to start?
He'll be fine. Yeah. he
Okay.
should
Oh,
start.
all right.
He'll be
We'll
great. Go ahead,
let
Trevor.
we'll
Go
let
for
him
it.
Okay.
start.
So here's why I want to start, because yet again, I know I always talk about this. I've talked to so many awesome principals yet again and educational leaders this week who are continuing to see the benefits of esports in their school. And it's so much fun to see the light bulbs go off when they think about the number of kids that they're going to be able to serve when they bring esports to their school. When they see, it's like the veil continues to come off of different schools, and they're like, wait a minute, that would be good for this kid and this kid and this kid. And I bet we could do this. And it's so exciting to see that schools are starting to embrace this as being a solution to help kids and educate kids. And I love that aspect of my job. It does not get old, and I don't think it'll ever get old. So that's what I wanted to share. I met with another school again this morning from Wisconsin, who I had talked to their technology director last week, who is a World of Warcraft world ranked player. He loves esports, but his principal did not. And now his principal does. So it's just so cool to see wherein you have schools that are like, okay, yeah, I get it now. I get it.
So
That's what I wanted to share.
just to follow up on that, when you say that his principal now does love esports, go further with that.
That means
What did the principal not like before, and what got him sold?
Yeah, all they saw was kids playing shooting games or kids sitting in a deep, dark basement. And they didn't see the community aspect of it. They didn't see the camaraderie and the teamwork. And they didn't see how you could leverage kids playing video games into career opportunities and college scholarship opportunities. They didn't see that part. They didn't see that, hey, by learning how a video game works, how to design a video game, there's some benefit there. That when you learn about how you can't just jump on a game and play it. Someone had to build and design that game. Someone had to build and design that computer to play the game on. Someone had to build and design the network infrastructure to play that game. Like, all of that is a part of it. And until you tell people about it, they forget that even exists. And so we want to help kids and schools find that opportunity. And so that's what today was with the school in Wisconsin, and just loved it.
Oh, I love that for you. Mike, how's your week been?
It has been amazing. It's been a great week. We have a lot going on. Super excited about a lot of the things we're working on. I can't share right now, but it's going to be some good things coming. So, still working on the streaming and shoutcasting books, cybersecurity books coming along.
Ooh.
Yeah, gonna be some good stuff there. Talking to, just kind of going back to what Trevor said about the light bulb. I think a lot of us probably get into education because we like the light bulb moment. That's what we go for, and it's a lot of fun to see that when it happens to adults, because we don't, we're used to seeing it in kids, but it's fun to see the adults go, ooh, now I understand. And so it's always fun for me, heartwarming for me to hear stories like that, because, it's just my passion. And I've always had a feeling that video games might be good if taught properly, and we showed kids how to use it right. And I think we're finally getting to the point where society is embracing it. So it's making me feel good all the time. So
I love that. I actually had a great week as well. And I think one of my favorite conversations was, and tends to be a lot of times, but I distinctly had several this week where I had people reach out who are interested in starting esports in their school. And they are like, I don't even know where to start. And I'm not a gamer. And I think they're always a little relieved when I say, I'm not a gamer either, but this is how it's good. And this is all, we have so much stuff that I literally get off the phone with these people and they just like breathe a sigh of relief, like, thank you. I didn't know how I was going to do this. And you just laid it out so nicely for me. And it's so nice to be able to bring, because again, teaching is stressful. And, there's always some good person that says, I'll do the esports because I love kids and kids are asking me, right? And they have no idea where to begin. And I love being able to say, hey, we've done all your blood, sweat, and tears. Let's just make it easy for you. And so I've just had several conversations this week that I feel like I've relieved the stress of teachers, which makes me so happy because, they're stressed, right? And then it's a really small world because I was in Kansas City this week. I was working there. I had a nice hotel room all to myself. It was super quiet. I got a lot done. But I was leaving. My husband was actually there for a conference with Coca-Cola, a leadership workshop or something like that. And I went to go sit down and have lunch with them that very last day. Yes, I stole a little bit of their food. But sitting next to my husband and who works with him was our very own Gracie Wilcox. It was her aunt. And so we were talking about her and how spectacular she is. And they said, we just love her. She's just our little family gaming nerd that we love so much. And so little shout out to Gracie there. It was so cute. So anyway, moving on. Let's get that guest on. What do you guys think? Are you ready? Are you ready for your clues?
Yes.
Okay. Your first clue is this person did pole vault and volleyball in high school.
At the same time?
That would be hard. You can ask when they get on.
Okay, I'm going to ask him. Pole vault and volleyball.
It's a new thing. No, it's
Is that volleyvault? Is that what we call that?
Volleyvault. I see a gaming thing coming. You can do soccer with cars.
Competitive game we're going to come up with.
Pole vault and volleyball.
I am able to make a pretty good assumption that this will be a female based upon volleyball because there's not a lot of male volleyball going on. So
all right. There's a guess. This person at one point could read hieroglyphics.
What?
Wow.
What?
Is that real? Can you really read? I thought that was even an option anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I do that on Duolingo?
No.
Probably not. They're all pictures.
Okay.
It's all pictures. I wonder if hieroglyphics has sound to it or if it's just grunting.
We should ask.
Okay. We'll have to ask. Okay. And your final clue. This person was almost fired on their first day of teaching a few times after that.
It seems like I might know this person.
Who might that be?
A couple times before.
I'm very curious now.
Yeah.
All right. So our special guest today is coming on, and it is the wonderful, great, and awesome Alex Hirbe.
Oh my goodness.
Surprise.
You played volleyball?
When I saw it with St. Louis, I thought, gosh dang it. I was like, Alex is from St. Louis, but I thought surely she would never have Alex be on the show.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah.
You played volleyball in high school?
You played volleyball?
Yeah, we had a boys volleyball team, yeah. So
isn't that cool? So
Yeah,
Alex is our behind the scenes guy. But what's interesting is I've had Alex on my other podcast before, and he has such a great story
podcast
around. Yeah, he's just making the circuit.
I actually listened to that
why
episode.
I heard that I've been fired on my first day story before because
I want to hear this.
Here you go, Alex.
So many stories. So many stories.
Why don't you start first with just telling our listeners a little like who you are, and then
Yeah.
tell us the story.
Exactly. A lot of you guys might know me from the webinar, but my name's Alex Hirbe, and I am the LMS integrations manager for Generation Esports. That's just a fancy title for that I deal with things on the education team. So I should condense that to just say I'm on the education team. So
Perfect.
nobody ever knows what LMS integrations manager means. So, but super happy, super excited every day to work with the education team. And so I started in June officially with Generation Esports, but I've known Mike and Christy and have been working with Generation Esports since last August when they brought me on to start kind of consulting with them about the LMS, about Gameplan and putting their curriculum online. So before that, I was a teacher for 10 years in public school. And so I started with middle school. And that's where my almost getting fired story will come from. And then after about 5 years there, I upgraded to high school. And so I was the district technology integration specialist at my high school, or for the district. And then I also taught 2 high school classes, which ended up being at the end high school esports and wood shop. So kind of a very, varied path along the way. I've taught a lot of different stuff within without industrial tech. As the broad term is between Kansas and Missouri, but pretty much everything within it I've taught. So,
Super.
Do you have
super
all your
guest.
fingers,
yeah.
Alex?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Now what's so funny is there's a lot. So there's a lot of stories as a shop teacher. Shop teachers always have tons of stories. But I did almost lose one about a week before my last before leaving Baser, or before leaving for Jenny. I was routing a handle. I was doing a plunge route on a cutting board to make a handle, right? So the handle's in the middle of the cutting board underneath, right? So to be able to make that cut, you have to push the board into the router and then slide it between 2 blocks to stop it. So it's exactly where you want it. So I go to push in, and I'm holding both edges of the board, and I have all my safety gear on. And so I had, glasses and everything. So the first time I went to put it in, and the router bit, I'll tell you, the router bits to do these plunge cuts are huge. It's almost as big as my fist for these huge things, because the cutting board is maybe this wide. It's 2 feet by 2 feet almost. It's a huge cutting board. I put it in, and the blade, because router blade's like this, right? It flies out of the router, and it hit me in the neck, and no big deal. Like, no big deal. It hit my neck. I was like, oh man, that was crazy. That was crazy. So I had all my gear on. I said, I'm gonna put a face shield on, because the face shield gets down below my chin and everything. Put the face shield on. I go to do it. The blade comes out again. Okay, and it chews my fingers up into the blade. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. Luckily, another teacher had come in right when that happened, and he was like, "Are you okay? I heard something pop." And I said, "No, my fingers are like hamburger right now." And so, but it all healed up. Everything's fine. So
I love it.
So
See
not
why
only
he's
did
a
you
great
almost
guest.
get your throat slit by a
nothing
router
happened to my
blade.
throat. That was the weird thing. Nothing happened to my throat. It just kind of hit me, and I was like, "Oh man, that was so weird. I've never had that happen. 10 years working the shop. I've never been hurt as much as I have that day."
So Trevor asked if you had all your fingers, but my question is, do your students have all their fingers?
Yeah, no. So that's another funny story. Is that
that would
everybody?
get you fired.
That's another funny one. Is that everybody asks
not
that?
always.
Are all the kids have all their fingers? And right before I took over wood shop at Baser, I was doing computers as my 2 classes, and then I switched to doing more industrial tech stuff with wood shop. We did have a student lose a finger in the horizontal belt sander. So not cut off, it was sanded off. So if you can imagine a worse fate for your
trapped? Did they get trapped in it?
As the belt goes through this way, I should go like this. Okay, the belt goes through like this. There's a guard right here to protect it as it rolls around the pulley or whatever. And so the kid was holding a piece of wood, and the wood went in against the guard, and his finger went into the guard behind it and just shaved it right off. I mean, it's 80 grit sandpaper moving at 120 RPM. So I mean it doesn't take much. Like, I've nicked my fingernail on it before, and you have less than half a second to get your hands out of the way, because you can sand a fingernail down like that. So love shop class.
Love shop class. Well, Now we're in the esports world. So gentlemen, you get to talk. I mean, he's really got an interesting story around esports. So he's all
is much
yours.
safer, I think
Much
esports is
safer.
again another way to prove that esports is much safer than a lot of other things.
So much safer.
So
much safer.
true. So much.
So
Alex,
I want to.
how did
Go ahead.
sorry. Let's say,
No.
go ahead. How did you find us, Alex? Like how did your I know we probably know the story, but it's a very good story, I
The
think.
origin
So
story
how
here, yeah.
did you end up with us and how did all that come about?
Yeah, so before I started doing esports, I was heavily involved with doing things with Unity and Blender and computer coding. Those were my classes, the two classes that I taught, and I was really getting tired of it because my class sizes kept dwindling because the amount of kids coming up from the middle school did not have those skills. Like it was such a struggle every year. Intro to Blender, intro to 3D modeling was my freshman level class, and the amount of kids that took it seriously, that wanted to do it, that wanted to excel, and that did excel, kept dwindling and dwindling on for my numbers in my pathway. And so I was consulting with my district bosses and everything, and I said, I just kind of really want to switch what we're doing. And the opportunity for the wood shop came up because we had lost our teacher that was in there, and I was the only one certified in industrial tech in the district to do it. So that was kind of voluntold, but blessing in disguise because I love shop. And then they were like, well, what else are you going to teach? And I said, well, I guess I'll keep one of the computer classes or something, or do something on the side. And they said, well, what do you think about esports? I said, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about esports. I haven't done that before. And they were like, also, it's for the alternative school kids. And I said, no, I don't think so. And so another couple weeks went by. Yeah, first was no. I was like, I'm not adding to it. I'm not adding to what I teach, right? Because once they start knowing they can add to you, then they just keep adding to you.
Yeah, you're
so
done
you got to stay strong.
Sure.
You're done for.
You're done
Stay
for.
strong. You gotta stay strong.
You got to stay strong. Hold the line. And so they come back a couple of weeks later and they say, okay. How about you'll do the alternative school, you'll do esports, but we just want you to kind of mentor them. It's not going to be a real class. It's going to be an hour and a half of you building relationships and hanging out with these kids, and them having a kind of recess, right, was told to me. I said, okay. So I want to get this clear. You have zero expectations for me to do this esports class. I'm going to spend an hour and a half of my day to play video games with these kids, and they need to stay in the room. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what we want you to do. And I said, I want that in an email. So sent me to so I got the email. I was like, this is great. And then
this is really happening.
This is really happening, right? I was like, sweet. It's like another plan period. This is gonna be awesome.
Awesome.
And so unfortunately, the next month that principal left, and then a new principal came in who was, man, just really, really on it about curriculum and lesson plans and all that stuff. So she calls me in July and was like, hey, super excited. The board's excited about having this esports class. What is your curriculum? What's the curriculum that you're using? And I swear to you that I was on the phone with her and I Googled esports curriculum. And the first thing that popped up was a gaming concepts PDF. And as I'm kind of giving spin to what I'm going to be teaching, right? Just talking, just improvising.
So you did not have any background before
None.
You did that Google.
No. I mean, I've played video games for 20 or 30 years, but like no idea what esports really meant. So I Googled it. I opened the PDF. It was 140 pages, so I knew it was good. Sent it to her. I said, I got it right here on my computer. Let me just send it to you. She's looking over it. She's like, great, I'll send this to the board. And I'm like, good, great. And so
what's going through your mind,
milestone
Alex, when
checked.
You said that?
Well, I've been as being almost fired on my first day of teaching, I've always been a ask for forgiveness later kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of improv, as much as, you guys know that I do a lot of actual planning. When it came to teaching, I never got behind the bureaucracy of it, like writing lesson plans down. I might have some notes or, pull some videos up ready to go, but full curriculums and stuff like that, was never behind. And so I was just like, esports, whatever, like, great. I'm going to show them how to speed run Mario, and they're going to play some games, and they're going to give me a bunch of money for computers, and this is going to be awesome. But when August rolled around, when it was like, I got to teach this tomorrow, I started looking at it and I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff in here, like that I said that I was going to teach. And, I said I was going to teach it, so I'm going to teach it, right? This is the book I gave them. And so I started going through it. I'm like, man, this is good stuff, but I don't want to teach it out of a book. Like, it's not, that's not my style. So I want to put it on Canvas, which is our LMS that we used at our district. And I said, well, I'll just transcribe it into Canvas and kind of rebuild all the lessons into quizzes, and, I'll build assessments, and because I love doing that. I love doing that stuff. And then then the ask for forgiveness later kind of conflicted with my life goals of not going to prison. So I decided to call the publishers or the people on the book and thought, I'm going to ask them if it's okay. And so, long story short, here we are. They were like, you like doing LMS stuff? And I said, I really like doing LMS. And they're like, you should work here. And I said, that's a deal. That's a deal.
Me especially, I was like, you like to do this? Like, this is what you want to do? And I was like, oh yeah. This guy
like some people are really into like
It's a
curriculum and
perfect job for
instruction,
you.
right? Curriculum and instruction is like a big thing that teachers go into, right? I'm more into curriculum design, like lesson design, versus curriculum design and instruction. So that's the origin story of how I've started work here. Yeah, we go way back.
So, okay, can I ask you a question? When you first looked at that PDF, like, I know our current versions have pictures of Mike and Christy. Did they have pictures then? Could you see Mike's like face? Because it's a trusting face. Like, you look at Mike, you're like, I would go to war with that guy. Like, could you see his face back then?
There were no pictures. No, there was no pictures.
So you just
two
scanned
emails.
the curriculum.
Scanned is giving me more credit than worth.
Okay.
But,
and that was enough for your superintendent.
I mean, I was hoping.
Sure.
I was hoping.
I love it.
I
had no idea.
No page numbers, no units, no organization.
I just saw, all I saw was that there was 140 pages in that PDF, and I was like, if somebody's willing to write 140 pages on esports curriculum, it's got to be good.
That's my favorite part of that story. It's like, it's 140 pages, it must be good.
That's right.
That goes along with Mike's law of large words. Like,
yes,
you don't know, just put large words in there and it'll be fine. It's going to be fine.
Absolutely.
That is awesome.
So you didn't have a lot of obstacles in the way, because it was basically, we want to do this.
No, they wanted it. Our district was very our district was one of those districts that needs to keep up with area districts. Otherwise we lose people to those districts. And so, it's always, they got a new football field, we're getting a new football field. They got a lacrosse team, we're getting a lacrosse team. So, I mean, it's always back and forth. Like, they raise their salary, we raise our salary. So,
so who do I need to talk to about their esports program? Do they not have one yet? the rival school.
The rival school, yeah.
That's right.
You gotta talk. I'll get you a list.
Yeah.
So we're in Kansas City, so the Blue Valley School District, Olathe School District, Shawnee Mission, those are the ones we were competing with, versus teachers going there, students going there, families moving there for better opportunities. And we were a smaller school district, just outside of Kansas City, and but had a really good tax base that allows us to do really cool, innovative things and have really nice programs. It's just that sometimes the forethought was not always there to get ahead of somebody and be the leader for once. And esports was really somewhere where we actually were when we piloted and started the esports program.
That's awesome. So talk about, that first year teaching gaming concepts and just some things that, I know you've got a couple little inspirational stories around it, but what was that like that first year? And, was it easy? Was it hard? What were you most surprised with?
Yeah. So like I said, I'd taught for 10 years in doing a lot of different things from middle school to high school in the industrial technology realm. And in teaching gaming concepts, the first semester I taught for the alternative school. And so the expectation for me was babysitting. Just to be clear, like, that was the expectation. It was incredibly low. But as it went, these kids started having some structure and having some gameplay and having some lessons in, and you could see a little bit more of an interest on wanting to come with me. So, our alternative school was within the building, within the high school, and so I would go down to get them, to escort them to the esports classroom, and so it would just be, I would get notes on my computer or I get notes because students could like send a note to teachers through eHall Pass, and so they would send me a note and they would be like, "Can we come down early? We're all done with math. Can we come down early?" And I would just be like, "No, you gotta wait till one, I'm in class, so no, you can't come down now." And they would be like, "Oh, I've just been really working on Rocket League. I really want to practice it like on the big screen. I've been doing it on my Switch. I just want to practice it." And you could just see the like the buy-in and the ability for these students to have something purposeful at school versus, here's my math packet because I'm in alternative school. I need to get through my math packet to get to part 2, which is, to get to English packet, and then I can go to esports. So, they had a reason in the middle of the day to stay there and not leave at lunch, and we saw that. We saw that with attendance. We saw it with grades. We saw it with graduation rate. All the factors that we talk about on this podcast and on the webinars and through our marketing stuff, it's all true. And the alternative school kids loved it, and they really benefited from it. And that's what I think was one of the best things in the beginning, to see that this curriculum was working, not only because I didn't know what was in it, right, but that it was something that was actually really, really good. And allowed me in both the first semester and the second semester to have more meaningful conversations with students than I had in 10 years. Because my teaching philosophy had been, and of course it was my last year to be the most inspirational, like uplifting year, right, before I left education, right? So that's good, like to leave on a high note. But
Yeah, that's great,
the
actually.
previous 9.5 years basically was sage on the stage. Do not approach my desk unless asked, like very, very strict. And in being an industrial tech teacher that deals with things that will kill your students, you have to be hard and strict, and you have to be, the rules, because otherwise somebody's going to get hurt. And that was always my thing. And also, kids know when you're not being genuine, right? Like when they get those people that come in for those assemblies and they have a chair and they turn around backwards and sit like they're going to talk with the kids to be cool, nobody buys that. Nobody buys that at all, right? So I just always assumed that if kids knew that I didn't necessarily care about their weekend, I'm not going to ask them. So, because I don't want to be disingenuous to you, I want to teach you about the curriculum, and I want to teach you about, welding, and I want to teach you about shop class, and I want to teach you about computers. And that's where my honesty and my genuineness came from, not always the relationship piece, which was always the lowest on my, unfortunately, I guess, the lowest part of my teacher evals.
But you said your last year though that you started
and that's
relationships with kids, because
and I did like it.
that.
I did like it because when I went through school, it was so much of kids do not need to know your personal life. Don't tell them like how you voted. You don't need to tell them like what you did over the weekend. You don't need to have these like the kids are not your friends. And I don't know if I took that too literal when I was in college and going through education classes, but kids are not your friends was really drilled in to us. During I don't know, I guess it was a season of unusual court cases in schools, probably for teachers being friends with kids on Facebook and texting students and all that stuff. So it was hammered hard at us. And
I remember that, Alex. I think we're similar kind of going through some of that. I definitely remember there's so many uncertainties with what was like accessibility pieces between teachers, because of the newness of social media pieces, that there was a lot of fear with how much do you interact with, but you kind of get into it quick. You're like, that's not going to work. Like that's not why I got into this. I didn't get into this to be a robot. I got into this to build relationships and connect with kids. And so that is a tough place to be. And I would have to say it's probably maybe swung almost too far the other direction in some ways. You could see, depending on, again, and maybe that's just based on some social media posts I see with educators, like, you might want to tame it down a little bit here.
Yeah. And I was always afraid of that. They were like, you need to be part of this association, or you need to be part of this union, because you're going to be sued by parents because of inappropriate you're talking to them too much, or you're sharing too much, and that was a big fear I had. And so I think that that's what shut me down in building. And I thought, well, I'll just build a relationship purely professional, right? And that's my lane that I stuck with. So until we got to esports, because also at the same time, how many kids, and I've said this adage before, but how many kids can really build a relationship with you over dovetail joints? Not too many kids care that much about it, but when we went to esports and video games, I love video games. I've played video games for a long time. That was one of those things where, well, we can kind of connect on this is what I'm teaching. So that, opens that box in my mind of, talk about what you're teaching, relate it to your teaching, relate it to the content. Well, that's where we could really connect with, hey, I've played this game, or I really like the mechanic style of this game, or did you ever play this game? That led to some really good, icebreakers with these kids, to be able to relate to them on something that I liked personally and they liked personally.
That brings up something interesting when we talk about, teachers and online not relationships, but like just how they deal with their students online and how they communicate. So I always had a rule, like I wouldn't be your friend on social media until you graduated. That was kind of my rule. Yep. But when we started to have the gaming and esports, I had to kind of change my rule a little bit, because for me to compete and play with them, I had to be their friend on the particular service we use. So I had to be their friend on Battle.net so we could group together and and those kinds of things. So I had to make kind of a rule about, during the day, if you want to chat with me on Battle.net, perfectly fine, reach out, because we're going to be together probably anyway. Yep. But after 5 o'clock and on the weekends, yep, I don't want to hear from you, not because I don't like you, just because that's my time. And, obviously if it's an emergency, please reach out. If that's the way you can get a hold of me, that's fine. But, and the kids were great about it. Like I can't recall ever one time somebody going, hey, hop in this game with me, or giving me a hard time or harassing me or anything. I think they were so appreciative that we had the opportunity in school to do this, that they were like, we're not going to mess this up. So they were great about it. And
level of respect,
I appreciated that. Yeah.
That level of respect and kind of professionalism with those services that allow you to chat through game stuff is really great, because, the kids understand the importance and the responsibility of that, versus a kid that figures out what your Twitter handle is, or figures out what your Instagram is, right? And then they're just, sending messages and,
Well, the beautiful thing too is, I mean, there is a proof aspect that goes along with it to prove, hey, here's when we're interacting, here's what's actually happening there. So that's something I think we forget about with it, that you can do. I mean, you have some evidence to say, hey, here's the communication looks like that can happen with your Discord or whatever it may be. So, but it sounds like though, Alex, you not only did you find those connecting points, but you saw the deeper value in what esports is going to be for kids on the education side. And I'd be kind of curious, maybe go into the teaching aspect of it when you got into even more so with the gaming concepts curriculum, how it evolved from I found a PDF to now I'm running the class aspect. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, and so I have an interesting perspective about it because of my role as the tech integration specialist. So I was always looking for things, and it was always stuff, right? Always stuff to get kids engaged in STEM, right? That's the big thing, is what you buy stuff for in a district is for STEM stuff. And so, things like 3D printers, like 3D pens were really popular, virtual reality headsets, coding kits, for all grade levels. I managed all of these programs that sought to get stuff for the buildings. And the problem is, the stuff is great, but the other side of that is teaching the teachers how to use it, because they don't always want to or are willing to do it. And then when you don't have buy-in, the teachers won't use it. And then the students are like, great, we're going to do this 3D pen activity for a book, but I'm not relating that to anything else. And so a lot of the stuff I feel like that we buy, if it's not connected to a larger scope, which I didn't have a lot of control on, but if it's not connected to a larger scope, then it's kind of a dead end, right? So you do this fun thing once and it's like, we did STEM, right? We used a 3D printer and we did STEM. right? So that's great, but like applying that knowledge somewhere else is more meaningful and gives that stuff more purpose later in life. And so in relating it to gaming concepts, like you're not necessarily buying stuff. You need some hardware, but technically you already have computers in a district, or students usually already have like switches or consoles, or you could even use tabletop games. Like it's there, but the stuff is the curriculum, and the curriculum aids in like bringing these skills out that all these students are already possessing. And that's what I thought was such the most amazing thing about this curriculum, was that I had never connected that I was good at, sets of skills because I had played video games, like problem solving or critical thinking, or conflict resolution, or even sometimes like improvisation, right? Like I have a weird skill that I can get up and talk about anything for however long you need me to talk about, and I will sound like the professional, right? In the end, you might be like, wow, that was a really good speech. What did he talk about? Because I can just talk around in circles using all the big words, and not say anything at all, actually. So I have this weird skill, and I think that came from, I think that came from all of my days on World of Warcraft and trying to get people to buy things from me in chat, you know, and so,
That is
or trying to
hysterical.
get people to join my guild or trying to join my party, right? And so I have a
Stop
lot of
spamming trade chat, Alex. Stop spamming
sorry,
trade chat.
spam and trade. I need the money. I need the gold. So, anyways, I thought that's probably the number one thing I love about this curriculum, is that these kids already play video games. We know how many kids play video games, all of them basically,
Yeah.
and it's having the adult in the room to make that connection, and have the adult pull that skill out of the students, out of virtual world into real life. So, boy, you sure do talk really well on Fortnite, and calling shots and telling your teammates what to do. That's such great leadership. Like, what are some steps we can do to pull that leadership into the building here, into real
Let's use
life?
that in other ways. Yeah.
Yeah, like where can we use that, and just baby steps. And I thought and I saw a lot of growth with kids that I had in developing and having that light bulb click. Like, that's the light bulb moment, right? It's like, look, you're doing these problems, you're doing these, word problems, you're doing these depending on what game they're playing. Like, a lot of kids are playing sometimes word-based games, like that have a lot of text involved, like Hades or Celeste, or you're doing all this reading, and you comprehend it because you can continue the story. But where's the disconnect between that and you reading To Kill a Mockingbird? Like, how it's the same thing. You're reading a story, you're interacting with it, and then here's a physical book. So is that it? Is it because you're disconnected from the book? Or, so if To Kill a Mockingbird, that's it. That's our $1 million idea. We're going to make To Kill a Mockingbird a game.
Probably something out there. Okay, so can I, as a teacher of someone who applied it, do you not feel like that there has to be, like, a kid's not naturally going to do this on their own? They have to have somebody that is trained in such a way to draw that out of them. Do you feel like you had, I mean, obviously you did. I mean, this is semi-rhetorical. You obviously took those opportunities. Do you think kids will naturally see that unless someone shows them what's there?
I think that would be I think that would be something that needs to be proved for sure. I think that they can, given their right amount of prompting and maybe some facilitation. But the curriculum can be done completely remote. Like, so if a homeschool kid wanted to do it, then they could do it through the LMS, and it's written in a way that, you could, but it's hard to say, because the kid would have to report those things and show the artifacts of the evidence that they have brought these skills into real life versus just in the game. So I would say, in an ideal world, you would always want the teacher. The teacher always wants to be there in the room to make those connections and to guide the students, in their journey from virtual to in real life, and in transitioning these skills. Because otherwise students can have such misconceptions about, well, conflict resolution, I really resolved the conflict because I said something meaner than the kid did before, so I won. So conflict resolution, check. So they could have some very twisted ideas about what the goal is.
Oh, for sure.
And especially, as we know, kids don't always read all the directions. So how are they going to read the connection info that could be the most important thing? Is, they may not get that part of it on their own. And so, 100% there should be a teacher or an adult facilitating the class to make those connections.
Someone to help, establish that piece. And that, I mean, it's the same with anything else. I think about traditional sports or traditional activities that a bunch of kids can play. Like I was watching my kids yesterday play pickup tackle football in the front yard. They're not thinking about the restraint they showed by not knocking their buddy into the street. Like that's something that would take a coach say, hey, good job not having a late hit there. Like that shows your ability to have self-control. And so same thing in the esports world. So how do you coach someone that maybe doesn't understand esports and doesn't understand gaming, for that person, like a stereotypical teacher who maybe isn't a gamer? Can they still, with your experience, can they still navigate that piece and understand how to coach that without being a gamer themselves?
I think if you let the tool, I think if you work smarter, not harder, and you let the tools work for themselves, you don't have to know anything about esports to do it, right? I think if you're an observant teacher, then you can easily make the connection, possibly with a couple of PD sessions with us, or some trainings. It doesn't take much, but for you to just recognize they're talking and they're being a leader here. How can I bring that out into the classroom and then being a leader in my English classroom? Or how can they be a leader within the building? Or how can they, better resolve conflicts, because I know that they're in the office a lot with confrontations with other students. So I don't think it takes an esports person to view and to recognize those things, by themselves. But in an esports context, they might just want to have some sort of baseline chat with, somebody in a training, or, a small PD session about, these are some things to look for. These are things that if you're observant, you will definitely see within your program, within the class happening, that you can pull out and make into a teachable moment.
Awesome.
Because I think teachers see that a lot, teachable moments that are not related to their content at all. Like, a kid, drops his lunch tray in the thing, and another kid goes and helps him pick it up, right? Teachable moment, right? Or flip side, another kid kicks the tray and everybody starts laughing. Teachable moment. They're both teachable moments. And so it's as educators, we're trained to know that those are ways where we can either, reinforce or have to correct those behaviors.
Well, you reinforce on both ends, the good and the bad. So awesome. Thank you, Alex.
So do you have any, because there's one, and I'm going to pull this out of you, because there's one story that I always like that you talk about, kind of a little inspirational story that among your students, and when you started to have these kids in your class, what came to light and to fruition for you?
Yeah, so twice in a week here, because I talked about this on the webinar, I think this past week too. But it's a good story, and I think it happens more even if you don't see it happen. I think it happens in the background, whether you as an esports facilitator or teacher or coach realize it or not. So esports brings in everybody, right? So we already know that that's a fact, that they bring in all kinds of different kids. So popular kids, shy kids, non-popular kids, smart kids, not as smart kids, everybody, right? So we had an instance at our esports class when I had moved from alternative school, and during this semester we were in general population, that we opened it up to as a second pilot. And I had a kid in there that was not somebody that would be, he wasn't in NHS or honor roll or anything. He kind of ghosted through the building, right? And people only knew of him if he was on a list to check that he was there, right? So just kind of drifted through the day. He didn't cause any trouble, but he also didn't do anything. And he came into esports, and he really found his niche with this, because he is actually a super good Valorant player. Just like you would think he was cheating, because he's so good. It's like, I walk around the corner, I'm dead. I walk up the stairs, I'm dead. Like and he always wanted to target me because he thought it was funny, and that's okay. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But as we're building a relationship here, so I can lose gracefully, right? Not that I had much to offer in being able to fight back, but I could sometimes get one shot off, maybe. But anyways, he was so good at the game, and we were rolling through Valorant as one of the games that we were rotating through. And the captain of the football team also was trying to play Valorant and play well, and he was okay. And they kind of migrated together, and it all started one day with the first student saying, "Hey, you got to keep your crosshairs up at about 20 degrees higher." And I'm like, that is very technical information you just told him. And he was like this, and he was like, "No, down a little bit, right there, keep it right there." And he was like, "Dot your screen, like you should put dot on your screen with a here." He threw us an expo marker, and so from there, they started talking every once in a while, every little bit more, because their screens were like this, and so the shy kid could see the football kid's screen all the time. And so he started coaching them up just out of nowhere. And they became the bestest of friends. And they started chatting on Steam. They started, doing things offline, like outside of school. And it's like, in what world are we living in that this kid is now friends with the captain of the football team?
Right.
And it's like, this is like Lifetime movie material here, right? It's like such a feel-good story about the underdog and then the popular kid, and they come together through this mutual, this mutual passion.
Love of Valorant. Yeah.
The love of Valorant, right? And
That'd
so
be a Nicholas Sparks movie.
it could
Alex.
be a lot of different people could take it on.
I see a Netflix series.
But see, it was so great to see that it just took one thing, that he had an issue with how he was aiming. And he just spoke up, and he just, that's just what kind of erupted from him from doing this. And then it turned into him showing real leadership in the classroom about taking on Valorant. Like, guys, we're going to do this. And by the end of the class, he was running Gameplan. He was running the training sessions that they wanted to do, and doing so good at it. And he's still in high school now, and he's just thriving through the esports program. So we didn't have enough time to get like the second course in before I left. And so what they did was they offered half of the students that were in my first course in Gaming Concepts 1 to come back as mentors to work with Gaming Concepts 1 new students. And so they're the esports coaches. So he's the Valorant coach, and then there's a coach, I guess, during the class, or aide, Valorant aide, and then there's a Rocket League aide, and there's a Smash Brothers aide, and then there's a Fortnite aide.
Oh my gosh, what a great idea.
Yeah, so because the kids wanted to stay in the program, right, and they wanted to continue this esports journey, that was the only way we could really do it, is for them to come back as aides, and do the class kind of again, basically, but in a leadership role.
That's a leadership role, and I'm sure the teacher was thrilled to have them. So they're the experts in the room. Who wouldn't
want 4 extra kids that know everything about esports in there?
Yep.
That's fantastic. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up and end on that note. Alex, you know the drill for this, but I'm not going to have you pick a number this time, because I actually just created the question today, because it's in line with the theme that, on Monday it was Halloween, right? So here is my question of the day. What was your favorite Halloween costume growing up?
Oh boy. Favorite Halloween costume. Well, when I was here's a high school story for you. When I was in high school, I was very outgoing, if you can imagine. And
I cannot.
I was very outgoing. And so I didn't do it for Halloween, because I used up all my supplies we had a spirit week of Halloween, I think, if I remember correctly. It could have been homecoming, but I'm just gonna call it for Halloween.
Yeah.
And so I woke up at like 4:30 in the morning that day. It was going to be costume day at the building at high school, and I think I was either a junior or a senior. And I did Dr. Evil get up from Austin Powers, and I put the bald cap on, and I had the scar, and I had the orange jumpsuit from when he did
You had it all.
When he did the Hard Knocks parody when he was in prison. So that was my favorite one that I'd ever done. So after that it was always, I always just put on my Boy Scout uniform to be for Halloween, because it was just like, it's easy. In the closet, it's right there.
It's easy. So, I like it. That's good. Yeah.
Dr. Evil.
Trevor, Mike, favorite Halloween costume?
Go, Mike.
Okay. Well, one thing on that, I didn't spend 6 years in evil medical school to be called Mister. So I'm just going to say, doctor. Mine was, of course, Darth Vader. You know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Sure.
I remember the picture, and my mom still has the picture of my cousin and I. I was Darth Vader, and he was a stormtrooper, and he was very upset that he wasn't Darth Vader. But I was like, yeah, I'm older, and that makes me Darth Vader.
I'm older. I'm Darth
Vader.
Vader. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I was like 6 months older than him, so it made me Darth Vader.
That's cool. I love it.
So we did not celebrate Halloween for most of my childhood. We went to fall festivals for a variety of reasons. My parents were not big fans of Halloween. And so the few times I got to dress up, it was like a ninja.
Oh.
And so I'd wear like black sweats. But I can honestly, I can remember dressing up one time through my childhood. I've dressed up more as an adult than I ever did when I was a kid. Because my parents weren't a big fan of Halloween. They had some different ideas about what Halloween was. So
and that's
we were not able to support much of Halloween. But now as an adult, by golly, my kids, we have themed costumes. We match all three of them up. It is a full family event.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, what has been your favorite family theme costume? I love that.
Oh man, favorite family. So last year we were bacon, waffle, and eggs. That was my
that's
kid.
so cute.
That's awesome.
We've done farming themes before, where my son was a John Deere tractor, another son was a farmer, and then another one was a sheep. And so we had kind of like a farm theme. So my wife is all into that. Well, one year, one son was a UPS truck, and then this is before he had my daughter. My other son was a UPS package that he was delivering. So he was the little itty bitty fella at the time. So
okay, that is adorable. I love it.
We have some fun there. Or I say my wife. I don't do it. I just show up. But
yeah, but that's so fun. My favorite Halloween costume. It's funny because I was always. I think my dad probably wanted a son in his lifetime because I was always a boy somehow for Halloween. And other than Princess Leia one year, you'll be glad to know that, Mike Russell. But the one that I remember distinctly was I was a boxing champion. And so I had like the whole pummeled face, and I wore my dad's like robe, and on the back of it, he put Kid Kristen, flyweight champ. And so I thought I was pretty cool with that costume. That's one of the ones that stands out. I think that was 5th grade maybe, but yeah, so much fun.
That is cool.
Yeah, it was a fun one.
Was that around like the Rocky movie time? Like, is that
it might have been
Rocky was kind of hitting everybody there? And,
it might have been. It's probably 82, 83, somewhere in there. So could have been. I don't know, but I loved it at the back. Because the big thing back then was to put felt letters on the back of your shirts. So it was felt letters on the back of the robe. So
I have no idea what you're talking about. So you guys are old.
Well,
Trevor's too young to remember.
Alex and I are a little young for that.
That's right. Well, let's go ahead and tell everybody where we can get a hold of you. So, Alex, where can they follow you or get a hold of you on social media?
Absolutely, Alex Hirbe on LinkedIn or A Hirbe at Twitter. And then, of course, you can always find me on the weekly webinars from gamingconcept.gg.
I love that. And I can be found at Generation Esports on Twitter and LinkedIn. Mike?
I am at Russ the Teach on Twitter and Michael Russell on LinkedIn.
And Gertzen_edu on Twitter and Trevor Gertzen on the LinkedIn.
All righty. Well, thanks for coming on today, Alex. We really enjoyed you. And until next time, keep on gaming, people.
Thank you.